The telegraph operator's hands were still shaking when he nailed the poster to the saloon door. $10,000 for Jack Widowmaker Calloway, dead or alive. I watched 3 bounty hunters read it, then watched all 3 walk away. Blood money, they called it. Calloway had put 17 men in the ground, and every last one had been faster than me. The smart play was to let sleeping dogs lie, to let someone else collect that fortune while I kept my skin intact. But standing in that dusty street with 47 cents in my pocket and my father's grave 6 months cold, smart didn't fill empty bellies. The bank had taken our ranch 3 weeks after we buried him, sold it to pay debts I didn't know existed. My younger sister Mary was washing dishes at the boarding house for pennies, her hands raw and bleeding every night. That $10,000 could buy back our land, restore the Thornton name, give her the life Pa promised before consumption took him. So while wiser men walked away, I loaded my revolver with 6 bullets that cost me my last coins. Sometimes desperation makes a man braver than he ought to be, or maybe just more stupid. They say every legend starts with a fool's first step, and mine began the moment I decided that poster was my salvation rather than my obituary. I wasn't the fastest gun. I wasn't the smartest tracker. Hell, I wasn't even the bravest soul in Arizona territory. But I was the most desperate, and desperation has a way of sharpening a man's focus like nothing else can. Before I tell you how a 23-year-old ranch hand with more guts than sense went after the most feared outlaw in the Southwest, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button because this story gets darker before it gets light. Slam that like if you've got the stomach for what comes next. And drop a comment telling me what country and city you're watching from. I want to know where my fellow wanderers are gathering tonight. Now let me take you back to August of 1883, to a territory where justice wore a tin star, but mercy had long since ridden out of town. This is the true account of how I became the hunter, and how the hunted became something far worse than any wanted poster could describe. The trail to Jack Calloway started in a place most sensible folks avoided after sundown, Mother Redding's gambling house, where information flowed cheaper than the watered-down whiskey and twice as poisonous. I pushed through the bat-wing doors just as midnight choked the last honest men off the streets, leaving only the desperate and the damned. Cigarette smoke hung thick enough to cut with a Bowie knife. 3 card games were running, but I wasn't there to gamble with money I didn't have. The real game was reading faces, and every weathered countenance in that room told a story of survival bought with someone else's blood. I needed one of those stories to point me toward Calloway. Mother Redding herself stood behind the bar, a mountain of a woman with arms like fence posts and eyes that had watched the worst of humanity parade through her establishment for 30 years. She looked me up and down the way a butcher sizes up a steer, already counting the cuts. "You're Samuel Thornton's boy," she said, not asked. Her voice carried the rasp of 1,000 cigars. "Heard about your troubles. Also heard you're sniffing after Jack Calloway like a hound with a death wish." I laid my last 2 pennies on her bar, knowing it was an insult, but also knowing she'd respect the honesty more than empty pockets trying to pretend otherwise. "I need to know where he runs when the law gets close. Who supplies him? Where he gets his ammunition." Mother Redding swept my pennies into her massive palm and laughed, a sound like gravel sliding down a mine shaft. "Boy, half the men in this room would sell that information for real money. The other half would shoot you for asking. What makes you think I'll give you anything?" "Because my father once stopped 3 drifters from burning this place down over a bad card deal," I said, meeting her eyes without flinching. "He took 2 bullets doing it, and you told him you owed the Thornton family a debt. I'm here to collect." The room went quiet enough to hear a mouse breathe. Every man at every table had stopped pretending not to listen. Mother Redding's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Memory, maybe, or the ghost of honor, in a place where honor usually died screaming. She reached under the bar and pulled out a hand-drawn map, old and stained with what might have been coffee, or might have been something darker. "Calloway's got a woman in Red Creek Canyon, runs a trading post there, named Celeste Moreau. French girl, tough as railroad spikes. He stops there every 6 weeks like clockwork to resupply. He was there 4 weeks ago. Mother Redding continued, sliding the map across the scarred wood. Which means you've got 2 weeks to get there ahead of him. 2 weeks to figure out if you're actually going to pull that trigger when the moment comes. And about 2 seconds to get out of my establishment before one of these fine gentlemen decides that $10,000 bounty looks better on them than on you. Red Creek Canyon earned its name from the rust-colored walls that bled orange in the setting sun. Not from violence, though plenty of blood had soaked into its dust over the years. I reached the trading post on the 6th day of hard riding, my horse half dead and my water nearly gone. The building squatted against the canyon wall like a wounded animal, weathered planks held together by spite and determination. Celeste Moreau was hanging deer meat on hooks when I rode up, her hands stained dark and her blonde hair tied back with rawhide. She didn't reach for the Winchester leaning against the wall, but her eyes measured the distance. Smart woman. Most folks out here shot first and buried questions with the bodies. Trading posts closed, she said, her French accent softened by years in the territories but still present, like perfume lingering in an empty room. Come back tomorrow if you're buying. Ride on if you're trouble. I dismounted slow, keeping my hands visible and away from my colt. Name's Daniel Thornton. I'm looking for information, not trouble, though I suspect in your line of work those two dance pretty close together. Thornton. She wiped her hands on her apron, leaving dark streaks. That name connected to the bounty hunter asking about Jack Calloway in every town from here to Tucson. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Word travels fast in empty country, faster when it's attached to a fool's errand. Then you know why I'm here. I tied my horse to the rail, giving it access to the water trough. The animal drank like tomorrow might not come, which for both of us was a distinct possibility. I need to know his habits, how he approaches, whether he comes alone. Celeste laughed, but there was no humor in it, just the bitter knowledge of someone who'd made too many compromises to count. You think I'm going to betray a man who spends good money at my post? A man who's never raised his hand to me, never shorted me a dime, never caused me a lick of trouble? I think you're a businesswoman, I said, reaching into my saddlebag. I'd sold my father's pocket watch in the last town, the only thing of his I'd kept. The money wasn't much, but it was real. I laid $60 on her counter, 2 months' worth of supplies for her, probably more. I think you understand that money's money, and the dead don't spend it. She stared at those bills like they were a snake coiled to strike. Her fingers twitched toward them, then pulled back. For a long moment, the only sound was wind whistling through the canyon and my horse still drinking. Finally, she scooped up the money and tucked it somewhere in her skirts. He comes at dawn, Celeste said quietly, glancing toward the canyon mouth as if Calloway might materialize from her words alone. Always from the east, with the sun at his back so you can't see him clear until he's close. He's careful, methodical, circles the post twice before approaching. He'll know you're here the moment he crests that ridge. She pointed to the canyon rim. And when he knows Daniel Thornton, he won't run. Jack Calloway's killed men for less than an ambush. You better be ready to dance with the devil because you've just bought yourself a ticket to hell. Celeste gave me the back room, a cramped space that smelled of old tobacco and older regrets. One window faced the canyon approach, giving me a clear view of the killing ground I'd chosen. I positioned myself in the corner where shadow pooled thickest, my rifle across my knees, and began the torture that every hunter knows. The waiting. Night fell like a curtain dropping on a stage, and with it came the sounds that make men question their choices. Coyotes yipped in the distance, their laughter echoing off canyon walls. Something larger moved through the scrub brush beyond the post, heavy footfalls that could have been elk, or could have been something that walked on 2 legs. I didn't sleep. Celeste brought me coffee an hour before dawn, bitter and black as sin. She set it down without a word, but her eyes held something I couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe, or recognition. She'd seen men wait for death before. Hell, she'd probably served them coffee too. You ever kill a man? She asked, leaning against the door frame. The question hung in the air between us like gun smoke. Outside, the world was starting to gray, that dead hour before sunrise when everything looks washed out and unreal. No, I admitted, seeing no point in lying to a woman who could read desperation as easy as most folks read newspaper print. My hands tightened on the rifle. But I've shot deer, wild dogs that went after our cattle, a horse that broke its leg in a gopher hole. I know how to pull a trigger. Shooting a man ain't like shooting an animal, Celeste said, her voice carrying the weight of experience I didn't want to examine too closely. An animal doesn't look at you with understanding, doesn't know what's coming. A man sees that barrel pointed at him, and in that split second you see everything he is. His fears, his regrets, his desperate want to live just one more day. She pushed off from the doorframe, started to leave, then stopped. Jack Calloway's killed 17 men, you know what that means? It means 17 times he's been the faster one, the smarter one, the one who wanted to live more. You think about that when you see him coming. The sun started its climb, painting the canyon walls the color of dried blood. I watched the ridge she'd pointed out, my eyes burning from lack of sleep, my finger resting alongside the trigger guard the way my father taught me. Never on the trigger until you're ready to fire, Daniel. A nervous fingers killed more innocent men than malice ever did. Then I saw him. Just a silhouette at first, man and horse moving as one unit against the brightening sky. He stopped at the ridge exactly where Celeste said he would, and even from this distance I could feel him studying the post, reading the landscape the way a scholar reads books, looking for anything out of place, any sign of trouble. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. This was it, the moment where all the planning, all the righteous anger about my family's ruin, all the desperate need for that bounty money came down to one simple truth. Jack Calloway was real. He was here, and in the next few minutes one of us was going to die. I brought the rifle up slowly, steadied it against the window frame, and prayed that Celeste was wrong about what it meant to kill a man. Because ready or not, willing or not, I was about to find out. Calloway descended from the ridge with the patience of a man who'd survived by reading danger in the wind. He didn't circle the post twice like Celeste said. He circled it 3 times, each pass tighter than the last, his hand never far from the revolver on his hip. I tracked him through the rifle sight, my breath coming shallow, fingers still off the trigger. He was bigger than I expected. The wanted posters showed a lean, hollow-cheeked ghost, but the man in my sights had shoulders like an ox yoke and hands that looked like they could strangle a bear. A thick beard covered half his face, shot through with gray, and a scar ran from his left eye to his jaw, some old knife fight that he'd obviously won. On his 3rd circle, he stopped, just stopped dead in the middle of the canyon floor, about 60 yards from where I crouched. Then he did something that turned my blood to ice water. He looked directly at my window, not scanning the building, not checking for movement. He looked right at the dark square where I hid, and he smiled. "You can come out now, boy." His voice carried across the distance, deep and rough as a rock slide. "Or you can take your shot from in there and hope you don't miss. But I'll tell you straight, if that bullet doesn't kill me clean, the next 60 seconds are going to be real educational for you." Behind me, I heard Celeste's sharp intake of breath. She'd positioned herself in the main room, probably hoping to stay clear of whatever bloodbath was coming. My hands started to sweat against the rifle stock. He couldn't possibly see me in this darkness, could he? But somehow he knew. Somehow he always knew. "I'm going to count to 10, Calloway continued, dismounting with fluid grace that belied his size. His horse didn't spook, didn't shy. It was trained for gunfire, for chaos. "Then I'm going to draw my pistol and put 6 rounds through that window. Maybe I hit you, maybe I don't. But you'll have lost your advantage, and we both know how this ends after that. 1. His voice was steady, conversational even, like he was counting cards at a poker game instead of counting down to murder. 2. I had the shot, clean line of sight, steady rest for the rifle. 3. But my finger wouldn't move to the trigger. 4. This was different than deer, than wild dogs. 5. This was a man who knew I was here, who was giving me a choice. 6. I stood up, still holding the rifle, and stepped into the doorway where he could see me clearly. Maybe it was stupidity. Maybe it was some warped sense of honor my father had beaten into me, but I couldn't shoot him in the back, couldn't kill him without him seeing it coming. 7. Calloway's smile widened. 8. He stopped counting. Daniel Thornton, he said, and hearing my name from his lips was like hearing it spoken in a graveyard. Samuel Thornton's boy. I heard you were looking for me. Heard you were desperate enough to actually try it. He shifted his stance slightly, and I recognized what he was doing, getting his weight on the balls of his feet, preparing for the draw. Your father was a good man. Honest. He wouldn't want this for you. My father's dead, I said, surprised my voice didn't shake. And the bank took everything he worked for because of debts I never knew about. My sister's washing dishes until her hands bleed. That $10,000 on your head is the only thing standing between my family name and complete ruin. I raised the rifle to my shoulder. So I'm sorry, Mr. Calloway, but I didn't ride 6 days and spend my last dollar to have a conversation. I came here to collect a bounty. His smile disappeared. His hand dropped to his gun, and the world exploded into thunder and smoke. I fired first, the rifle's crack splitting the morning air like the sky itself was tearing open. The recoil slammed into my shoulder, and through the powder smoke I saw Calloway twist sideways. Hit, but not down. His own pistol cleared leather faster than a rattlesnake strike, and the trading post wall beside my head exploded into splinters. I dropped below the window, my ears ringing from the twin gunshots, wood fragments stinging my face. My hands were already working the rifle's lever action, ejecting the spent cartridge, chambering another round. Behind me I heard Celeste scrambling for cover, knocking over something that shattered. Another bullet punched through the wall 2 feet to my left. You got backbone, boy. I'll give you that. Calloway's voice came from a different position. He was moving, using his horse for cover. Smart. But backbone don't mean much when you're bleeding out in the dirt. Another shot, this one through the window, showering me with glass. I risked a glance over the sill. Blood stained Calloway's left shoulder, a dark spreading bloom against his duster, but his gun hand was steady. My shot had been good, just not good enough. He was behind his horse now, using the animal as a shield, and I couldn't bring myself to shoot through it to get to him. That moment of hesitation nearly killed me. Calloway rolled out from behind the horse, came up firing, and I felt something burn across my ribs like a hot poker laid against bare skin. The impact spun me sideways and I crashed into Celeste's counter, scattering tin cups and ammunition boxes across the floor. Daniel. Celeste's voice cut through the ringing in my ears. She'd grabbed a shotgun from somewhere, was moving toward the door. He's reloading, go now. I looked down, saw blood soaking through my shirt, but nothing felt broken. The bullet had carved a furrow along my side, painful as hellfire but not fatal. Not yet. I pushed myself up, grabbed my rifle, and lunged through the door just as Calloway snapped his cylinder shut. We were 15 feet apart, close enough to see the calculation in each other's eyes. His pistol came up. My rifle was already rising. Time did that strange thing it does in moments like these. Stretched out like taffy, every detail crystal sharp. I could see the individual beads of sweat on his forehead. Could see his finger tightening on the trigger. Could see my own death in the black circle of his barrel. My finger found the trigger, started to squeeze, and then Calloway did something I'll never understand. He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Just a flicker of something across his face that might have been recognition or might have been regret. That hesitation saved my life and ended his. My rifle barked, the bullet catching him square in the chest. He staggered backward, his pistol firing into the dirt, and sat down hard against the water trough. His gun slipped from his fingers. Blood bubbled at his lips when he tried to speak. I walked toward him on legs that felt like water, my rifle still raised, my side screaming pain with every step. Celeste was shouting something behind me, but I couldn't hear the words over the roaring in my ears. Calloway looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw what Celeste had tried to warn me about. Understanding, recognition, the desperate animal want to live just one more day. You win, boy, he managed, blood spilling down his beard. But let me tell you something before I go. He coughed, spattering red across the dust. That bounty ain't going to fix what's broken in you. Killing a man never does. His eyes went glassy, fixed on something over my shoulder that only he could see. And Jack, Widowmaker Calloway, breathed his last with the morning sun painting the canyon walls the color of glory and shame. I stood over Calloway's body for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, watching his blood seep into the thirsty canyon dust. My rifle hung loose in my hands, suddenly heavy as an anvil. Celeste appeared at my elbow, her shotgun lowered, her face unreadable in the harsh morning light. She didn't say anything, just pressed a cloth against the wound in my side until the bleeding slowed to a trickle. "You need to wrap him," she said finally, her voice flat and businesslike. "Body won't last 3 days in this heat, and the nearest marshal's office is 5 days' ride in Copper Ridge. You want that bounty? You better get moving." She was right, of course. The practical concerns of death, preservation, transportation, proof of kill, these things didn't care about the hollow feeling spreading through my chest. We wrapped Calloway in canvas and lashed him across his own horse, the animal snorting and dancing sideways from the smell of death. I went through his pockets with hands that shook more than they had when I'd pulled the trigger. $73 in paper money, a silver pocket watch engraved with initials that weren't his, a photograph of a woman and 2 small children that made my stomach turn over. "Those his?" I asked Celeste, holding up the photograph. She glanced at it and shook her head. "Belonged to a man named Richardson, ran a general store in Alamogordo. Calloway shot him during a robbery 5 years back. He kept it as a reminder." A reminder of what? She didn't say, and I didn't ask. Some questions had answers that made the world darker. I tucked the photograph back into Calloway's pocket, along with the watch and most of the money. Kept $20 for supplies, and told myself it wasn't stealing from a dead man since I'd be the one who made him dead. The logic felt thin even in my own head, but I needed coffee, bandages, grain for the horses. The living had needs that the dead didn't answer to anymore. Before I left, Celeste grabbed my arm with fingers that felt like iron bands. "Listen to me, Daniel Thornton. What you're feeling right now, that emptiness, that wrongness, it doesn't go away. I've seen dozens of men ride through here with bounties to collect, and the ones who succeed are never the same after. The killing changes you." "I didn't have a choice," I said, but the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. "My family needed." She cut me off with a sharp laugh. "There's always a choice. You chose money over morality. You chose $10,000 over a man's life. Maybe he deserved killing, maybe he didn't. But you're the one who has to live with it now." I pulled away from her grip, angry now, defensive. "He killed 17 men. The poster said dead or alive. I did what the law couldn't or wouldn't do. I brought a murderer to justice." But even as I said it, I remembered that hesitation in Calloway's eyes, that fraction of a second where he could have killed me, but didn't. What did that mean? What kind of murderer hesitates? The ride to Copper Ridge was the longest 5 days of my life. Calloway's body started to smell on the 3rd day despite the canvas, drawing buzzards that circled overhead like a funeral procession written in the sky. I didn't sleep much, and when I did, I dreamed of his eyes going glassy, of that photograph of Richardson's family, of my sister Mary's bleeding hands, and my father's grave. Marshal Hawkins in Copper Ridge verified the body without ceremony, counted out $10,000 in banknotes with hands that had done this too many times to feel anything about it, and stamped my claim receipt with bureaucratic indifference. "Congratulations," he said, pushing the money across his desk. "Jack Calloway's been a thorn in this territory's side for near a decade. You did good work here." But when I walked out of his office with more money than I'd ever seen in my life, clutching it against my wounded side, I didn't feel like I'd done good work. I felt like I'd traded something essential, some piece of my soul that I couldn't name but could feel the absence of, for a stack of paper that suddenly seemed too light to balance the scales. Celeste was right. The killing had changed me, and no amount of money was going to change me back. I bought back my family's ranch with that blood money, every acre restored to the Thornton name just like I'd promised myself in that dusty street when I first saw Calloway's poster. Mary quit the boarding house, her hands finally healing, and we rebuilt what the bank had stolen from us. On paper, I'd won. I'd done the impossible, tracked down the most feared outlaw in the Southwest and lived to collect the bounty. People in town looked at me different now, with respect mixed with something else, something cautious, like I was a loaded gun that might go off unexpected. But Calloway was right about one thing, maybe the only thing that mattered. The money didn't fix what was broken. Some nights I still wake up seeing his eyes go glassy, still hear his final words echoing in my head. I kept that photograph of Richardson's family. Don't ask me why. Maybe as a reminder that every monster was once just a man who made choices, same as me. Maybe because I need to remember that the line between hunter and hunted, between justice and murder, is thinner than a wanted poster makes it seem. They say I'm a hero in these parts, the man who brought down Widowmaker Calloway. They buy me drinks and ask for the story, and I tell them a version that makes sense. Brave bounty hunter, dangerous outlaw, righteous victory. But late at night, alone in the ranch house my blood money bought, I think about that hesitation, about why he didn't kill me when he could have, about what Celeste said about choices, and I wonder if the real cost of saving my family was losing whatever made me my father's son. That's the price they don't print on wanted posters, the piece of yourself you leave behind in the canyon dust, wrapped in canvas alongside the man you killed. $10,000 bought me back my land, but it cost me something I can never reclaim. And that, friend, is the truth behind the legend. If this story gripped you like a Colt 45, hit that subscribe button for more tales from the untamed West. Smash that like if you felt every bullet and every regret. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Daniel Thornton's boots? Where are you watching from tonight? Until the next story, may your aim be true and your conscience clear, because in this world, you rarely get both.